Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Genesis Block. So following on from all the crazy mental stuff that happened in the world of crypto last week, we thought that it wouldn't really make sense for us to do another episode on a protocol analysis or a theme, or anything particular in general, rather than just, give ourselves and you guys some time to process basically what's happened with the entire FTX saga, which is basically, I mean, crypto's Enron. You could say, I mean, even though, like the kind of stuff this guy did was so egregious. And yeah, like in general, wanted to have a chat with Yash, Sid, and you guys as well. Just understand the state of the market, what the FTX debacle means for crypto in general, and not only crypto, but like for the future of the space, right? So, I think that from my perspective, it makes sense to go back to your first principles and understand why you're in this space in the first place. Like, what is it at your core beliefs that you think that crypto and like not even crypto, but blockchain and Web3 are good for? And does the implosion of FTX make any difference to your core thesis? And if it doesn't, then well, I guess the path forward is at least a little clearer than it would be under the anger and the rage and the sadness of everything that happened last week. But I think that it's just also just discussing it like this is just good catharsis.
Do you
Definitely.
wanna just give a quick 2 minute on what exactly happened?
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is let's discuss that. But I think there were like a few good tweets that summarized the entire timeline of what's happened. So let me pull those up. Actually, I have already got it. But basically, there's this account on Twitter called 0x Kyle, and he's got a really good timeline of what's happened in this overall FTX saga, right? So I think that let's just start from the top, and maybe I can actually yeah, just understand from where this entire thing began. So first, the 2nd November was when the entire thing happened. um so there was an article that was published on CoinDesk on the 2nd of November, which is titled "Divisions in Sam Bankman-Fried's Crypto Empire Blur on His Trading Titan Alameda's Balance Sheet." So the article basically pointed out that what we already know by this point, that the balance sheet of Alameda is full of FTX. So specifically the FTT token issued by FTX, and the FTT token was supposed to grant holders a discount on trading fees on the FTX marketplace. What happened was that in Alameda's assets, Alameda had $14.6 billion of assets. Its single biggest asset was $3.66 billion of unlocked FTT. The third largest entry was $2.16 billion worth of FTT collateral. And therefore, within its $8 billion of liabilities, there were $292 million of locked FTT, and the liabilities had $7.4 billion of loans. Now, the thing is that where did all of these loans come from is one of the main questions that was asked. And what exactly is the value of those FTT tokens that were provided as collateral, right? Like it essentially doesn't really mean a lot because the token, for a large part, is a bit of a valueless governance token, as we've been calling them. And not really only governance, actually. Like, what are you going to govern at FTX? You're not really going to govern a centralized entity, right? So what the
Yeah.
FTT token was meant for is not very clear. And apart from all of this stuff on their balance sheet, there's large amounts of Solana. So there was about um 1.15 billion dollars worth of Solana, locked and unlocked and as collateral. And then um $134 million of cash and equivalents, and $2 billion of investment in equity securities. So no one really knows what that means. Did they just buy S&P 500 up? I mean, is that what they were doing with customer funds? But anyway, and they also had other tokens, which were Sam coins, as people are calling them. which were endorsed by Sam Bankman-Fried. And so the tokens are like SRM, which is the native token of the DEX. That was built on Solana, called Serum. And three other ones called Maps, Oxy, and FIDA. Never had heard of them before. Didn't know what they did. Lucky us, I guess. And yeah, so that was the first salvo that started this entire mess. Second, so then the industry started wondering if it's a cause for concern. And yeah, there's a lot more negative sentiment that's building up. And then Caroline Ellison, who's the CEO of Alameda, it started to address some of these concerns around the balance sheet. So so what she initially said was, um, the specific balance sheet is for a subset of their corporate entities, and they have more than 10 billion worth of assets that aren't reflected there. The balance sheet broke out a few of their biggest long positions, and they have hedges that weren't listed. And they said that they had returned most of their loans by then. And this was on the 6th of November. I mean, clearly false. Then an hour and a half after this, an hour and 15 minutes after Caroline's tweet, CZ, who is the other major player in this, the CEO of Binance, announced the decision to liquidate FTT on his books as part of a risk management decision. So what he was saying was that they didn't essentially want to have FTT on their books, and they wanted to minimize market impact, so they wanted to just unwind the FTT on their books. And they were basically saying that it's not a move against a competitor, right? So this was another round in this entire opening exchange. Now, 7th November. This is literally like 15 minutes after. After SCZ tweeted, Caroline tweets back saying that, CZ, if you're looking to minimize the market impact on your FTT sales, Alameda will happily buy it all from you today at $22. And there was so everyone is looking to SBF for reassurance. And then an hour after Caroline's tweet, he posted a tweet of like the send function on the FTX exchange, which is just fantastic, I guess. And he said, "Make love, not war," which I guess, considering all the stuff that we found out about the Bahamian cabal, I guess they were making love, but also making war. Um, Come on, guys. I think you have to respond to that. Like, let's take a break here, right? Like, okay, so in this initial stuff, what do you guys think? Like, what are all the blatant lies? How many blatant lies have you counted so far?
I mean, so I don't know about lies, but the way I've thought about it is that all of this is kind of has been kickstarted by Luna imploding. So I'm saying that because so Luna was, one of the biggest cryptocurrencies, and obviously it was the collateral for UST. And because they offer 20% yield on Anchor, even the most the safest risk managers out there, they would still have some kind of exposure to Anchor. Right. So Luna imploded, and then like a month later, I think we saw the collapse of 3AC, Celsius, and BlockFi and Voyager were also on the verge of bankruptcy. So 3AC and Celsius, they completely imploded, obviously because they had a large exposure to Luna and UST, and they had over leveraged a lot. The typical things you would see with an unregulated fund that that's offshore or whatever. And Voyager and BlockFi also were on the verge of bankruptcy, but then SBF for some reason decided to bail them out and acquire them. Now we thought it was because of his magnanimity that he wants to save the industry and kind of make sure that the contagion is limited. But it turns out that he was just kind of saving his own ass, right? Because these funds also had exposure to FTX as well. So if these funds imploded, they would have to liquidate the FTX also, the FTT token. And then that would cause a bank run on FTX, and people would find out that FTX themselves are insolvent. So he was saving his own ass there, and it's just come to bite him right back in the ass like a few months later. So it was all kickstarted because of Luna and because of very, very poor risk management and trading strategies by all these centralized entities, which only goes to show that in crypto or in any industry for that matter, you should not trust anyone or any institution. And like the first principle in crypto is not your keys, not your coins, which people just keep to seem forgetting. And I'm not sure why, but the main reason is probably greed, right? Like Celsius offer like, risk-free 10% APY. Anchor did the same thing. 3AC also was like a very respected name. So people kind of blindly gave them money and allowed them to cheaply borrow money and leverage up. And I think FTX and FTT and Sam Bankman-Fried did exactly the same thing. So it's really not shocking. It's just shocking that it was Sam Bankman-Fried because he was so trusted in the space, which just goes to show how much more that you should not trust anyone.
How much more of a snake he was, right? I mean, with all the regulatory proposals that he was making in the US with the the bill that still trying to go through with. It was a Sam bill. It was known in Congress, I think, as a Sam bill, which I guess is good for us because no one else liked it. And like it turns out that he was like the biggest snake that there is been in this space.
I mean, he was literally in Congress talking about how there's so much counterparty risk in crypto and people over leverage. And he was saying all this shit with a straight face while he was doing exactly that. Like that's some next level sociopathic behavior.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to how fast they got to power. And when comparisons with, I mean, I can't sit here saying I know how it feels, but if someone in such a short amount of time starts comparing you to the likes of JP Morgan, I mean, I guess you get a bit disillusioned, and I guess he was believing what he says, because I mean, I don't think anyone's that good an actor to say one thing while doing the exact same thing. So beyond human people, a human error, I think it's also a testament to how small the industry is. It's quite crazy that the Luna contagion, we're still seeing the ripple effects right now.
Yeah, but I mean, let's not blame this on Luna, right? Because the thing, I mean, like, sure, like, I mean, to be fair, like, I wouldn't mind blaming things on Luna, but like, actually, there's a lot of there's a lot of moral hazard that went on in this thing. Like the guy, I mean, we'll get to it at some point maybe, but the guy literally created a backdoor to move funds around within FTX.
Is that true?
I mean, I don't know. I've seen rumors, but I think he actually did.
No, I mean, they said that FTX was hacked. It wasn't hacked. I think it was the backdoor, and he was just siphoning out funds into an not offshore, just a wallet address controlled by him.
Okay, this wasn't for moving money to Alameda to fund the losses.
No, but like he was able to move,
just taking money out.
No, but even that, like even what he did with Alameda was like completely off the radar. Like no one could actually see it, and he had his own backdoor into this entire thing. Right? So it's not like it was the Luna contagion. Like the thing is that Alameda would have gone down, and none of us, like no FTX customers would have been affected if Alameda had gone down without the user funds being sent to Alameda. So we can blame things on Luna as much as we want,
Yeah,
but
I'm not blaming things on Luna. I'm just saying that it's quite funny.
No, I know.
It exemplifies how small the industry is, that the fact that Luna is still affecting to such a great degree, right, the industry. So I'm not blaming Luna.
Exactly.
It is a fact of the matter.
Agreed.
If anything, of the three things, Luna was the least egregious, right? Because it was a fundamental flaw in design, and maybe Do Kwon siphoned out a lot of money, etc. But the collapse of Luna itself was only because of bad design, not because of fraud in any way, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't even leverage, because I mean, fundamentally, Three Arrows collapsed because of over leveraging or leveraging in a indisciplined manner. And similarly for FTX, right? They used collateral that should not have ever been used as collateral to take loans and fund whatever losses they had to fund on Alameda side. So I definitely think you're right. I think Luna, out of all of them, surprisingly that I'm saying this, is actually the least egregious.
But that also says a lot about how bad the other two were, because Luna was pretty bad. I mean, like if you remember how bad it was when all this stuff happened at that time, no one would be like having a positive impression about Luna. So let's not let's not get into a situation where we think that what Doe did and what Luna was, and like how that entire thing unfolded with the Steady Lads and like all the with the Luna Foundation guard and the Bitcoin and like wherever that went to, because I don't know if that's been answered yet. Like, where did all the Bitcoin that the Luna Foundation guard had go? Like, what happened? I mean, like the reason that Luna is not as bad was because it was essentially, you know, what happened when a few crypto bros came up against people who actually knew the ins and outs of finance and were able to be exploited. And also, what was worse about Luna was the fact that Dokon's a bit of a dick, and like he was just, completely he had just too much hubris. And he flew again too close to the sun. So that's definitely an issue. But yeah, Luna was bad. Three Arrows Capital was worse. Celsius was as bad as Three Arrows Capital, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows, right, at this point? But what's clear is that FTX is the worst by far, because Sam was, and like the reason FTX is worse, and let's be very clear about that, is because of the way that Sam presented himself to the entire industry, the way he, came out as a savior with the moves that he was making, and also the fact that he was anointed by Washington to be the adult in the crypto room, which is hilarious in context, really, because no one in crypto actually thinks that Gary Gensler is a good faith character, and it's really stunning how he was able to really fool everyone.
Yeah. I think the main problem I'm seeing with all of this is that so centralized exchanges are able to build platforms that are a lot more compelling for users to use in terms of UI, ease of signing up, all of that. And decentralized finance is a lot tougher for an average user to come in and use. And
Yeah.
because of that, centralized exchanges have just amassed so much capital and power that people kind of just forget exactly what the space is about in the first place, and they get lured in by the gains, the greed, the 100x's, and they don't really care whether they're buying it on a centralized exchange or storing it in their wallet. At the end of it, if they think it's going to, everything is going to moon,
Exactly.
people are like, all these retailers and this massive boom that we saw in 2020 and 2021, it was all driven by lots of speculation, easy money, and people didn't care whether they were using decentralized applications or not. They just cared about their gains. And I think it's like a introspective moment for all of us.
Let's not forget that this isn't, I mean, this isn't an only crypto thing. I think this is like you were alluding to, this is a decentralized versus centralized issue, because just, I think it was months ago, maybe last year, that Robinhood was under fire, right? They stopped customers from able to transact their what they owned on the platform, and they too were about to go under. I think they got bailed out last. They managed a massive fundraise in like overnight. But if that wasn't the case, if Robinhood somehow was in the crypto business, maybe that capital didn't come just because of the perception of the industry, and maybe they went under, and that would have affected users to the same extent as FTX, if not larger. So this is definitely a centralized entity issue versus a crypto issue.
Yeah, exactly. I think
think
that's
for the industry to progress, I think the main sticking point I'm seeing right now is the lack of easy access to storing your stuff, or creating a wallet and accessing decentralized exchanges. And also, because there's more capital flowing into centralized exchanges, they have more liquidity, so that you get better trading. You get a better price to trade at. There's lower slippage, etc., as compared to a decentralized exchange, along with obviously the user experience issues. So it's a very easy decision for an average retail guy that, do I want to open an account on Binance, FTX, or do I want to create a MetaMask wallet, fund it with Ethereum somehow, and then go and connect to a decentralized exchange and then buy my coins, right? There's so many more steps when it comes to holding stuff in a decentralized fashion. And that's the pain point that needs to be solved immediately for this to never happen again.
Yeah.
You know what's really sad is this whole debacle is being used as a poster boy for why crypto is a fraud, as opposed to why crypto is actually the answer to the problem. And like you're saying, right, creating various user experiences that allow easier onboarding onto DeFi platforms is definitely the right way to go. But how do you do that? Because I mean, this is the best example for to sell someone why you need DeFi. But then ubiquitously, I mean, this is what I'm seeing on my various social media feeds, is that this is being used to get those people away from crypto altogether, right? So like this is the open question, but how do you even like go about saving face? And only once you have that initial comfort with the Web2 consumer, only then will they actually test and try out your novel
I
UXs
mean,
that you created, right?
but the answer is in what we've been saying for ages. Like we've been talking about this exact answer for the however long we've been doing this podcast, which I feel like it's been 6 months now. Good stuff, guys. But like in general, like the answer is good user experience, good product market fit, and good apps. Like it's really like it's not. I mean, it's again like you have to repivot on the fact that it shouldn't be about devs building for devs. It should be about building for retail consumers. It should be about easy consumer experiences. It should be about abstracting out a lot of the crypto native stuff like wallets and 24-word seed phrases and 12-word seed phrases and all of those kinds of things. Like you still need your keys to and your coins, and but you need to provide access to your keys and to keys to people. You need to give private keys in a way that is not cumbersome, and it's not a difficult thing to do from a UI UX perspective. I think that you like the answer is okay. People say that, oh, like this is a stick to beat crypto with. It's something that people are gonna use as kind of like um as a justification for, oh, like this is why you should move out of crypto. But the thing is that the people who are left in building, um I think that like what I can say is from my perspective is that the reason that and I think that this is a good segue into into why are you actually in this, like why like what is it that you believe about this technology that fundamentally improves things from how they are today, and does that thesis change with something like FTX? And what do you think needs to improve in this space in order for it to reach the level of adoption that we've wanted to reach, right? um, yeah, I think that when we discuss that, we can kind of figure out what DeFi apps need to do in order to reach people in order to reach more people. But also, it's not only DeFi that is the technology isn't the blocker. I think that when we were doing the real world assets episode as well, um, that's and like from a lot of the things that I've come across, the technology is not the issue. It's actually the lack of regulatory clarity. And like when people say that, oh, it was someone like FTX that, FTX blowing up is kind of like proof that crypto is bad. I mean, I find that hilarious because FTX is an example of how, again, like Yash said and like you said, it's just how centralized things blow up without any transparency and like without anyone knowing what's going on under the hood. And I feel like it's a lot more damning on a regulatory perspective, because on a regulatory perspective, a lot of the stuff that I've seen is indicating that moving FTX and other exchanges to offshore jurisdictions and not having a proper regulatory framework for how these exchanges should be managed has caused more damage than it's caused more damage than anything else, right? Like the SEC and other regulatory agencies are doing regulation by enforcement and going after smaller entities. And Gary Gensler was like, "Oh yeah, we didn't have like the time and resources to be able to invest in FTX." Well, I mean, like if they had invested all of the resources that they took in trying to, in trying to ban that project that was trying to, the lottery one, which was I forgot the name, Pool Together, Pooley. That was the project. And other ones that are like bad faith actors, but really, I mean, not at the scale of something like an FTX. I mean, it's just regulators making excuses a lot of the time in this case, in my opinion. And I wouldn't only lay the blame on regulators, because honestly, like this guy fooled everyone. He fooled the best VCs in the space. He
Sure.
fooled all retail. He fooled politicians. He fooled, you know, Larry David to make his commercial. Like he fooled everyone. Like it's you can't really. I mean, it's tough to even in hindsight say that any of this stuff could have been. It's very easy actually in hindsight to say that, oh, you could have noticed this and that and everything. But honestly, like the red flags that were there were not obvious at all, and people who were saying that, oh, there were like so many red flags, and everyone should have just known that this was going to happen is fooling themselves.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with your main point, which is, builders should not be building for builders, and you should have more better. You should really build things for that actually provide value to consumers, right? I agree with that, but what I'm trying to say is that that's the top layer. The layer bottom is the fundamental trust in the asset class. So even as like however good you make the consumer experience, if the trust is not in the asset class, any platform built over the asset class is not going to see any meaningful adoption, right? So the question is, when will that trust come back? Regulation, yes, regulation, more clarity in terms of how people should navigate the space without falling under the SEC spotlight or whoever's spotlight. That will get that will be a very positive catalyst for trust to be built up. But then the the bear case, and maybe not bear case, but the case where that says that this will take longer than expected, is that the whole system of not the judicial system, but the system that creates laws, right? um uh it's made for robustness and not efficiency. So in my eyes, I don't see. I think this has put us back maybe a year, maybe more, um, as opposed to say something like a Luna, which maybe put us back 3 4 months. But because of his presence in Washington, and it's like I feel like Washington has felt rug pull now,
Yeah.
because of because of SBF and his influence. So I think that's just gonna really, you know,
Yeah,
it's
fair.
what's the
Very,
word?
no, I mean, I agree. I wasn't trying to make any kind of timeline about when, like, I agree with you. This is put us, it's obviously, it's going to take time to build trust back and, like, get to where we were, which is hilarious because even last week we were like, ah, damn, we're like way behind. But the thing is that, like, this industry is never going to succeed unless people are, unless like you actually figure out, unless you have trustless protocols. Like
What
that's
do you
the
what do you
that
think about? Sorry to cut you off, but what do you think about Coinbase and their various marketing strategies? Do you think that, I mean, obviously they didn't know all this was happening, but all their content creation, their TV show, web series, whatever. Do you think that is one way of, speeding up the building up
no,
trust
not
in this
really. I
space?
mean, like it's not like at this point I mean, and I know that Yash will agree with me because, yeah, I think that we're on the same page about this. But dude, like I don't care about what Coinbase does at this point. Like I heard, um I was listening to Bankless's live stream afterwards, after the or and like during this entire thing, and honestly, like I mean, they were right. Like a centralized exchange is just a place where you go and do your business and come out and take your coins with you. Like I am done trying to use centralized exchanges for anything but executing initial trades, and like I'm putting all of it into my ledger immediately. And yeah, like, you know Coinbase can do what they want. I am not going to trust anyone except for my own keys from this point onwards. I mean, I had already stopped doing that a while ago, but this only reinforces it. And everything is going to be in a ledger. Everything that can be in a ledger will be in a ledger. And I am, and like Coinbase and other centralized entities, like they may or may not be good actors, right? Like I mean, like at this point, like of course, like there's nothing to Brian Armstrong is a I mean, a lot of the things that he said are great, but come on, like at this point, that level of trust with like individuals is broken. Like there's no level of trust with an individual that's going to make me, use a centralized exchange, and like all of these centralized, parties. Self custody is the way to go for me. I mean, like it's just very, very clear.
Yeah, I think the flip side to this argument is that even when you use decentralized applications and protocols, a lot of the time there's another element of risk, which is smart contract risk, right? So if there's an average retail user, how does he know whether he's going to be exposed to smart contract risk or not? And um, would he rather just still go to a centralized exchange because there'll be an application you can download, it's very easy to do your KYC and just start buying shares, as compared to a decentralized exchange where you don't exactly know what you're getting, right? So maybe like the top DeFi protocols, RP, Compound, Uniswap, Curve, etc., they're obviously safeguarded because they're tried and tested, and you can clearly see that they're very robust in terms of security. But what if there's a smaller decentralized exchange, or there's some kind of lending protocol or some kind of yield aggregation protocol? How can an average retail user possibly know? Like, even us being in the space, we don't know whether anything is exposed to smart contract risk or not, right? It's only in retrospect that you find out that, oh my god, there was this bug and that's why it got hacked, etc. So how do you solve that problem for the retail user?
I think personally that's a like a tail risk, not a maybe tail risk is not the right word, but I think that's a secondary problem, because the user that you're referring to, right? The user who is actually in a dilemma between using Coinbase or decentralized exchange, a majority of the times their needs will be sufficed by Uniswap. Like if they want to just swap tokens, if they are a someone from the web 2 world who's investing maybe in index funds that want some exposure to crypto, they'll more likely than not just want to get exposure to Ethereum and Bitcoin. Maybe a few more coins, as the whole space matures. And those I'm pretty sure you'll get access to on Uniswap. So you won't even need to explore to these experimental protocols. And if they do for their curiosity, I think then we can expect them to just not use a lot of money and expose, a
If
large
people,
percentage of
yeah,
the portfolio to it.
if people are going to be
So
degens, then they'll be degens. Like, but I know that that's not like a satisfactory answer to what you're saying. So I think like a practical kind of thing is that you actually like I don't know if this is possible, or I don't know like how far, like I don't know how this is practically going to be possible, but you have to build some kind of insurance component into a DEX trade,
hmm,
or something like that, where a lot of these funds, like like for example, if fees are paid to Uniswap LPs, for example, right, to Uniswap liquidity providers, like you can have a system in which those fees are, X percentage of those fees are put into like a pool that is, in the that yeah that no one really custodies, the pool in the smart contract that's meant for um any emergencies. Like that's the kind of, like that there are definitely solutions to these problems. Like these are not impossible problems where you can't ever figure out smart contract risk. Like if tools, like for example, you can't, like you need smart contracts to be very carefully audited. And the thing is that like nothing in the world is ever going to be completely safe. Like at the end of the day, your bank account is safe because it's insured by the government, that all of your assets are safe in that, up to a certain level, that too. um right, so you need them at some point, like where a lot of these arguments start to break down, is that you need, in many instances, law behind you. You need regulation behind you to a certain extent, and you need you just like you like this is the world we live in. Like um you're not going to get anywhere by trying to like just go at it gung ho, and then and like have no backing behind you. um you might just fall flat on your face. And I'm not advocating for, like regulators to like step in and just do everything. Like the industry should be able to figure out an issue as much as it can, but where that issue when that issue leads to a dead end and you can't solve it, and the only answer is that you need some sort of regulatory backing behind it, then that's not a wrong answer. It's an acceptable answer. Like nothing is ever going to be pure and perfect.
That
yeah,
kind of
I
brings me to my bigger question, is that what incentive do regulators have to actually legalize the use of crypto? Because what crypto does is it takes the power away from the government, puts it back in the people's hands, right? And which government in their right mind would actually want that to happen,
Depends on
right? The
the
US government wants to control the they want to be the world reserve currency through the dollar, right? They want to be able to dictate financial flows all over the world. They still want to be that world superpower. And if Bitcoin or Ethereum is going to be that next world reserve currency, which the US government does not have control over, why would they accelerate that process instead of trying to stop it as much as possible?
Agreed. So that's definitely like a point where um, regulation might not be effective or just might not come into the picture. But the thing is that every currency, every crypto, every asset, everything that is there in this world um, did not come about to replace the dollar as the world's reserve currency. I mean, Bitcoin did. I don't really think Bitcoin was ever meant to be the world's reserve currency anyway. Like, in the sense that when Satoshi released it, like, I don't think that anyone intended for it to be, the poster boy of alternative currencies that can challenge the dollar, at least in our heads, right? And even stripping all that back, the reasons that I'm in this space are not anything to do with replacing the world's reserve currencies. The 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 reason that I'm in this space is because I know that clear there are clear efficiency benefits, um, cost benefits, risk reduction, um, the new products, more trustlessness, more transparency, etc., that are enabled from the combination of blockchains and smart contracts. Now, at the end of the day, like, those are the core properties that I'm there for. I don't care, like, what all of, like, the use cases lend themselves very naturally to some of these things, and we've explored them, like all the things that we've spoken about on this podcast before. I mean, like, not necessarily each and every protocol, but all of the themes that we've spoken about in this podcast, and all of the and many of the protocols do act as very useful use cases. In many cases, we've seen that those protocols actually have used tokens where they didn't need to be used, and that's something that needs to be eliminated from this space. You can't be on one side of the fence and just go like, oh no, like, this is the only thing that's going to work, like, my thing is the best and nothing ever comes close to it, and being completely pure, and like, the only, we have to have tokens with everything and everyone has to do things that I say. No, it's not never going to work like that. But in a nutshell, the core properties of the blockchain and the core properties that tokens and smart contracts enable in terms of composability and efficiency and cost reduction and risk reduction are the reasons why I'm in this space. And I think that they still have the opportunity to, and the ability to improve so many products that we've got across the globe. Now, does a government not want another currency to supplant its own currency as the world's reserve currency? Of course it does. But does a government also understand that there are core benefits from the use of the technology itself, and from the use of smart contracts in terms of automation and improvement of industries, and actually, like, overall increasing economic output? Yeah, there are. So that is something that has to be squared as well. And again, like, maybe I'm being too naive and going like, oh yeah, like, a government will allow all of this stuff to happen. I mean, I don't know, right? Like, I don't want to put my faith in a government anyway. Like, the whole, like, it's not about that. um and we should try and figure out things on our own before going to anyone to try and help figure it out. But like, the point I'm trying to make is there are better reasons for why I'm in crypto than this. And I don't necessarily think that any and all forms of regulation are bad. I actually think the opposite. Good regulation is good.
Yeah, I and also
Yeah, right.
I agree with the point you're bringing up. Um, it's actually a very common criticism, right, of the space at large. They're equating the whole industry to using the technology as a medium of exchange, and that too, the reserve medium of exchange. So I
Yeah,
do think actually that the government will crack down on that subsect of the industry. Like,
yeah,
stable coins will be very heavily regulated. I don't think if they grow disproportionate power, maybe the government will clamp down. But to what Sid you're saying, right, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's never going to happen, because even to draw an analogy, when the internet came about, I mean, the government and a lot of institutions lost the power that they had, in terms of propaganda and communications. Right, they controlled communications, which is a very fundamental pillar of society. Now, this is definitely one step ahead. But like you said, I think there are too many benefits to just knock out a whole industry at large. And to be honest, your Bitcoin Ethereum is like to say that that the government will cramp down because the dollar will lose its reserve status. It's like saying, okay, they're going to ban gold. It's a commodity, right? You're not going to. It's a commodity that now exists. I mean, you cannot somehow delete Bitcoin anymore. It exists. It's a fact of nature now. So I would say that they can't really do anything about Bitcoin. And if the dollar is going to lose its reserve status, then it's going to. Now, what is going to replace it? I don't know, because all fiat currencies have lost all its value over time, right? So this is not um, something that I think that they can even control to when push comes to shove.
No, I mean, they can't control Bitcoin, but they can control access to it. They can control the
Yeah.
on-ramps to Bitcoin. They can make it illegal to hold it and basically disincentivize you from using it, right? I mean, obviously, I'm not saying they're going to be able to take down the Bitcoin network. That is impossible for them to do. But they can make it illegal to transact in Bitcoin or hold Bitcoin, and then what?
But didn't that happen in China? Didn't Bitcoin adoption like increase?
No, I mean that when
The
China
miners,
banned Bitcoin in 2021, like that caused a mini crash in the price of Bitcoin because mining
the
power
mining,
completely.
yeah, but from what I read was that actual adoption of token holders. Because that's a maybe it was not China, maybe it was the war, but like all of like because the use case of Bitcoin as hard money now is very, very solidified. So anything that like if the
I
government
mean, I
starts
wouldn't say
clamping
it's
down,
solidified.
Yeah, I
I think
mean
It's
it
definitely
is.
not.
Why not? I
it's
think
not
I mean
it's not solidified because like Bitcoin is not like, I mean, it's really like it's not solidified. It's definitely like a potential use case and like people have been talking about it, but there's no
mhm.
way I would call it solidified because no one's actually going to like peg their currencies to Bitcoin.
No, but in terms of it being a hard money over time, when the volatility reduces,
But
what
that's again like
properties of
that's an
Bitcoin will make
assumption.
it fail as a sorry?
The what properties? Well, the fact that like mining hash rate is controlled by like four mining pools, and the fact that like most Bitcoin has
Okay.
been distributed and like token ownership is like extremely concentrated.
Okay, I don't know the statistics on the token distribution. How concentrated is it? That's a good point. I should check
Like
that out.
it's like extremely concentrated within the top 10, like top X% or like top 1%, whatever. Like it's, dude, like Bitcoin has a lot of fundamental issues that are going to stop it from becoming a hard digital money, especially the fact that like the environmental concerns are absolutely not a joke.
Okay, I didn't know about the distribution. I'm going to check that out. But anyway, to the broader point, it's that Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think it's better to equate them as commodities. And if they stop like the on ramps, off ramps, it might reduce in some parts of the world, but like in developing countries where most of the people live, I think they're still gonna get access to it some one way or the other.
Yeah. I read that, around 60 or 80 countries of the world have pegged their currency to the US dollar. So if you think about it, the US money printer is never going to go off, right? Like maybe they've increased interest rates right now and decreased liquidity in the system, etc. But eventually they are going to reduce rates, right? That's just how it works. And they're going to keep inflating the value of the dollar away. Now, if these emerging market countries have their currencies pegged to the dollar, they will be in a much worse position than even the USA, right? Because they are pegging their
Exactly.
currency to a
Depreciation.
currency that's going to inflate away over time. So where will they turn to? And the most obvious answers are probably Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Because that's what we're seeing in countries that have experienced hyperinflation. Like Venezuela, if you offer them, local currency or the dollar or Bitcoin, I think a majority of them would pick Bitcoin and maybe the US dollar, but no one's going to pick the local currency. And if the US dollar itself is losing value in the future, then Bitcoin is the obvious answer. So I think adoption will maybe come from the poorer countries, in fact, that want to completely break away from the dollar financial system and transact in an independent currency that's not controlled by anyone.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
think
Maybe that's the path forward to mass adoption.
again, like I think that these are all like fair enough. I get the arguments. It's not personally like why I'm like enticed by this space and the technology. Like I think that for me, like using Bitcoin as like a world reserve currency has its own set of issues that will become very apparent if people start to adopt it. And I don't think it's like fit for purpose really. But like I don't think that it's like the stupidest idea in the world. Anyway, so I think that if you think that that's how adoption is going to happen, then like I don't think that that's necessarily incorrect. I think
I
that
think there are
my
I think there are multiple ways adoption can be driven, and this is just one of them.
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the only comparison that blockchain has is to the internet, really, right? In terms of adoption, use cases, etc. Like in 1999, like there was just static web pages that were worth like billions of dollars. And I think crypto went through the same thing already. And now hopefully the path forward is, real world applications being built that actually have significant use cases. And there was a breakout moment for the internet with social media that led to a lot of mass adoption throughout the world. And I think crypto is still waiting for that breakout super app
Yeah.
that everyone will want to come in and use. I think Mark Cuban recently tweeted about it that, crypto has a lot of independent use cases right now, but there needs to be some sort of super app or protocol or whatever that really drives adoption. And I think that's also a fair thesis to kind of have.
Dude, we're still waiting for Netscape, man. Forget about Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think we haven't even succeeded in going through the entire tweet thread, but we'll post that on the we'll post that on the chat when we're done. I think that we wanted to keep this one a little bit shorter and just have a bit of a discussion amongst ourselves around how the market has gone and what's been going on. And I'm sure that we could speak for like 2.5 hours about this. But essentially the point that we wanted to kind of drive home was that there is a lot more in crypto beyond this. A centralized exchange failing does not mean the end of crypto by any stretch of the imagination. It actually reinforces my trust and like my belief in decentralized protocols and working towards that side of things. And there are a lot more use cases in terms of cost efficiency, risk reduction, and new product development that crypto and blockchains bring about to so many different industries around the world, which are as we've gone through, music, games, real world asset tokenization, so many different types of things. Identity can be improved by building on open, trustless, permissionless rails. And it's really important to believe that some guy who was honestly just a snake oil salesman and turned out to be smart enough to dupe most of the world does not represent why we were in this space in the first place.
Yeah,
I think
I
that sums
think
it up.
what we wanted was like a gentle reminder of exactly why we're in the space. I think the three of us really needed it, and I'm sure the audience does as well, that crypto is not FTX. FTX is not crypto. It is way more robust and way more rugged than just one exchange collapsing. I mean, Mount Gox, which collapsed in 2014, had 70% of all Bitcoin volumes traded, and Bitcoin recovered from that pretty quickly. So, if something that big can happen, even though it was at much lower prices with lower liquidity, etc., if Bitcoin can recover from 70% of all volumes traded just going off, then we can recover from FTX, which is, 1/10 the volumes of Binance pretty soon, hopefully.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. And on that cheery note, thanks everyone, and see you soon. We're going to be recording a protocol analysis about hash flow soon enough. And hope you guys keep your chin up and everything is hopefully going to be okay. Yes, thanks
Not your
everyone.
keys, not your coins.
Not your keys, not your
Yeah.
coins.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Cheers.